So in this video we're going to look at business process reengineering from the viewpoint of which processes to re-engineer, and also who are the stakeholders involved that we need to take consideration of. So the candidates for BPR, what process should we re-engineer? Companies should allow the 3 C's to lead business process re-engineering efforts. So the 3 C's being customers, competition and change. Processes that are customer centric are ripe for re-engineering, as they will have an immediate impact if we do those activities with the customer. The company may be made more competitive if certain processes are re-engineered. We can start with those that are the most broken, and this is what you would do also if you were starting a service-oriented architecture coding project from scratch. You'd look for the most broken processes where, with success, that would be noticed by the other employees and would generate some quick wins that we would like to get going with. Processes that disrupt the status quo, leading to breakthrough change, are also good choices for fruitful re-engineering. And it talks at the bottom there about low fruit, those that we can get a quick win with quickly. That also can get the project noticed. BPR leverages the core competencies of a company. So a core competence, for example at 3M, they're very good at making substrates cheaply, coatings and adhesives, things like reflective jackets, the kind of little glass beads that reflect the light. That's always been 3M's strength. Black & Decker made their name with small electric motors that were cheap to produce. Canon with laser printer subsystems and a range of other things actually. And Honda petrol engines, they've always been better than most at producing really high quality efficient petrol engines. And it may be that companies assemble these core competencies over a period of up to 20 years. They have a strategy, long-term strategy of finding those products and then assembling them together so that one product, when it's declining, is replaced by another. Examples of core competencies: the use of a unique technology that competitors can't obtain easily. So when the float glass process came in at Pilkington, nobody else could do that at the time by floating molten glass on top of mercury. It was a very smooth surface. They took the market and were able to patent it for a while. Economies of scale, where capital required to achieve the production required excludes other competitors. A company which produces high volume, low price goods, where they're absolutely dedicated to eliminating waste and having efficient processes, that helps too. It's another good area to look at. A highly developed brand that sends universally favourable messages to the marketplace. So for example, when Roundtree, a company make chocolate, when they were acquired, there was an enormous amount on the balance sheet that was just there because they had gained universal acceptance for products like Kit Kat bars, where nobody even thinks about it. If they want a Kit Kat bar, they'll just buy it. They trust that the product is kosher. A company known for the high quality of its products, like Rolls-Royce or BMW, again, they have a core competence which is well known to the public. A company that is known for provision of customer service. So I suppose Virgin might be a company that you might consider there. So that gives you some focus on what the value proposition of your company is. So to maintain this advantage, you need to start thinking about benchmarking other companies. and that can be very useful. I worked in a company where we made large industrial water chillers, and one of the difficulties that there is in making those was having very good leak detection of the refrigerant systems that are involved. And we were a big company making big machines, but we benchmarked Lek refrigeration at Bognor because they had some absolutely excellent leak detection systems where you actually fill the machine with vacuum and then go around with a helium lance from the outside, and you immediately know you're going to detect squeals as soon as the helium is drawn into the machine. So it's just an example that a big company can benefit from what a small company is doing, and benchmarking is a very good technique for learning from other companies who aren't necessarily in competition with you. Lek was not making industrial water chillers, and we weren't making small domestic fridges. Some of the large companies like SAP, Oracle and IBM have all acquired BI companies, business intelligence companies, to do this kind of looking at other companies and being able to see trends in what things are doing. So for example, SAP bought Business Objects, and IBM and Oracle also bought BI companies and integrated them within their product ranges, just for this kind of purpose, or one of the purposes. The last slide talked about key performance indicators, and you set up key performance indicators for the as-is processes, the way that things work now, before you do the re-engineering, so that you can then do a check as to how well you're doing against what was the original baseline. And these typically get turned into dashboards, of which you see a typical dashboard here, and you can, for different factors such as sales, opportunities, activities, leads, tickets, it's showing how the company is doing in those areas. So the choice of where to start will probably be driven with what will yield the greatest return fastest. But you do this with the idea of comparing what you've done before with what's going to be the to-be processes that you're going to design. So choosing the processes to change, you could look at high volume, low margin activities, or high defect, high reward activities, high skill, time intensive activities, high complexity, specialised resource activities, and processes built around obsolete or changing technology, which is fairly obvious that you would do that. It may be that low cost labour reduces the need to do business process re-engineering to a certain extent, because you can do the production so cheaply anyway. But there will come a time where quality isn't as good, and I think Apple's finding that it has very, very good design products, but the manufacturing side is cheap, but not necessarily of the best quality. So you might decide to go to one of these companies within kind of silos and re-engineer processes there, but all you're then doing is you're making it harder to change things globally for the company. So you've got to be very careful where you actually start the re-engineering. So looking at those things we've just talked about, high volume, low margin processes, these are the ones that support high revenues but not necessarily much profit. So you get high sales value but not much margin. So if you can improve the efficiency of the operations just a few percent, then this will make a big difference to the amount of actual profit that you make, the revenue that you keep. There's an example there. In a crisp manufacturer, you only need to let one rotten potato into the batch of potato that it gets, and you end up with each packet having a black chip in it, which can scrap lots of product. So if you focus on price, that may mean that even small changes and reducing cost may mean big value rises. In a high defect, high reward process, you might look at how defects in manufacturing, packing and distribution are impacting customer satisfaction or increasing waste. You might add additional quality controls but that then leads to diminishing returns, because you're putting in more cost to reduce the quantity, and there's a limit to how far you can go in increasing the quality. Poor goods inwards inspection will impact processes later on, and you'll end up with products that are faulty. And also outbound shipment errors that go to the wrong customer or that kind of thing, and also lead to customer dissatisfaction. So in this kind of high defect, high reward environment, the process improvement and quality assurance that you can put in can yield big benefits, but you can lose reputation if some of the processes within your company are neglected. And Toyota being a good case in part, they have always been known for very good quality and very rigorous processes within their company, and just a few mistakes led to lots and lots of recalls and lots of cost and lost reputation. In a high skill, time intensive process, processes where employees are expensive to employ, so this might be the health service. It could be in the city where you've got city analysts, things like that. BPR can benefit these types of companies by empowering the same people to perform their job faster, so to do more for in less time. Therefore, you're actually reducing the cost per patient or the cost per trade, etc. Some of the jobs involved, like in mortgage advising, for example, or city analysis, the employees are highly skilled, but they have a whole series of tasks that they have to do to provide service, such as interviewing clients, commissioning credit reports, gathering document portfolios, advising clients, etc. As we saw with the Cisco FX trading platform that they created, the Orbit platform, it is possible to eliminate a lot of these tasks and just have one person do it with a certain authority level, and then a web service to handle authority giving from a higher level. And you can really improve the amount of profit you make from each task by doing this. Highly complex specialised processes. Some companies make specialised products where their adverts highlight their competence in solving complex problems. I suppose Capgemini as a systems integrator is one of these companies who you may or may not have heard of. They require specialists to design and make the product, and that can be very difficult because those are in short supply, so it makes training harder. HR needs to work harder to support the process, and these complex processes may involve diseconomies of scale. Errors and defect rates may be high due to the complexity of them. So in business process reengineering, you can look at these complex processes in new ways and reduce complexity and cost by perhaps changing the way that the thing is done. So an example of that would be object-oriented programming, where you have code module reuse in programming. That can seriously improve the ability of a coding house to turn a project around quickly. Businesses that make complex products they keep it simple, stupid. In other words, simplicity as often as possible, and you can reduce. The simpler systems are, the easier it is for quality to be increased and efficiency to be increased. In the case where you have obsolete, changing technology, such as legacy systems that you have to use, it may be that you're kind of stuck with this to a certain extent, This is where advanced and flexible modern ERP systems come in, and they can do away with the need for some of these legacy systems, although you'll still always probably have one or two processes that are done in an old system that can't be replaced. Quite often that's the case. Standardised features and interfaces across product ranges. If you can achieve that, then that increases simplicity. Enterprise-wide information management and security practices. You need data storage, IT governance practices and change management. All those things need to be brought in to improve the way the companies run and how efficiently it can be run, lowering cost and improving the benefits from processes. And then the adoption of systems to design for multiple languages at the start. So you, instead of having to look at that whole system again for multiple languages, best to improve it at the start. And that's where ERP benefits so much, because it has means of choosing operating language, but also allowing people to trade in different currencies, and also to looking at the accounting systems and meeting the needs of local taxation agencies. Having that all built in is a very important factor in the case of enterprise resource planning. So lessons for business process reengineering. Number one, doing things smarter. It may not be the best thing and the most effective thing to just bring in new technology, and sometimes that can actually harm the process. If there's low cost labour available, you might be better off sticking with that and just going for a manual reorganisation of the process. Because the problem with that is that in some companies that have small divisions, putting an ERP system in with all its software licensing and extra cost may actually burden the company down and cause it to fail, or make some divisions uneconomic. So it's always best to look to see you're putting the re-engineering efforts in the right place, and certainly doing them within functional silos before you've actually done away with information hoarding. That can actually be very counterproductive. Lessons 2, doing things smarter but taking care of culture change. If you've learned from other companies, using benchmarking, looking at case histories of system implementations, and by talking to systems integrators who have done things like this previously, you will learn what you need to do. Part of process improvement is execution and company ethos and culture, and you won't necessarily be able to duplicate the success that's happened in one company that has a different culture and ethos, and then replicate it in your company or the one you're looking at. You have to be very careful how you bring in change, and that's where change agents are so important, to deal with things like culture change. Each delivery that you make every time you reorganise a process that is evidently better, it builds credibility and discredits those who would be opposing your changes. So having some quick wins, as we said at the start, is very important, but improving processes where the impact is long term is what you're seeking to do. So the constituents for BPR, which stakeholders should be involved? Well, firstly, customers, and that's why customer relationship management has developed so much and become a significantly important add-on to ERP. It's a bit of a shame that data protection measures discourage firms from storing personal data of customers. It's one of the reasons why when you go through several switchboards you get asked for the same details again, when systems are available to have that all retained within the company, and to make things so much easier for to create a slick experience for the customer where they feel they're getting, the company knows them and is looking after them. Asking customers how your company could improve is another way to so kind of benchmarking against customers and their viewpoints is useful. You can do customer polls, focus groups, role playing. One of the companies I used to work at, we never released a product until we'd actually had a customer review, where some customers we had sold to before came in and were asked to contribute to what they thought about the product and what they would change about it. Well after the product had gone through its prototyping, we would then get their view as well to see the final project. Obviously, ignoring customers is the surest way to make sure whatever processes you're attempting to do something with, they're just going to ignore you. Employees. What you want to do is hire people for a project that are self-starters who, by their nature, looking to have, they'll fill their day with proactive activity, as opposed to those who will just fill their day. BPR failures often result from headcount reductions where the human factor to make it as painless as possible is ignored. It's very much important that you treat people fairly even when you're getting rid of them, because you never know when they might come back, and or you might need them back through some big expansion. If you've treated them fairly in the past, then they will remember and treat you with that interest in the future. So headcount reductions that are labelled as BPR, just so that you can shed staff and cut costs, and calling it BPR, that will jaundice your PPR efforts for the future in your company, and then you will find it much harder to get those benefits. You need skilled information technology staff to handle a BPR project, who can look at hardware and software issues, systems integration, and managing go-live systems deployments. And we're going to talk about deployment later on. And you need sponsorship and high-level support for any project at the top. And without that, there will be opponents of it that will get a leg in and really cause your projects, your reengineering projects, some problems. And then you look at business partners and keep them appraised of what you're doing with process improvements. Trying to do some partner relationship management. These are people who either supply your stuff or supply you new materials, and in your new processes need different suppliers for the production. Keeping them on side is very important. ERP systems are extended to incorporate suppliers within one large ERP system, what's called ERP2. That can really benefit you. To have slick call-offs from suppliers. Something that any business process re-engineering should look at, keep in mind of. And then you need to think about auditing and regulation, and making sure that you meet health and safety regulations. So, for example, if you're implementing an ERP system, in the USA they have the Sarbanes-Oxley Act about disclosing regular disclosures of your accounting performance. You need to make sure that you're using software, and this is one of the reasons why people move away from accounting spreadsheets, because it's fine to do your accounts on a spreadsheet, but when you have to go through the reporting season where different nationalities are looking for details of the tax paid or the tax liable, then a spreadsheet won't give you that, whereas an ERP system will have all that built in. Other interested parties, you need to think about industry associations. How can they support your processes? Local community stakeholders, political lobbyists, and look for threats to the success of any re-engineering project that you're doing. So it's important to gauge how outside parties will react to new processes. And then you have to think about, will the competition follow? And of course they will, not necessarily straight away. So it's very much continuous improvement. You're not just doing a business process re-engineering once, although it may be a big bang change to start with. It's normally followed by continuous improvement to make sure you stay ahead and become more polished in running those processes. And we'll look at Rumler-Brack BPR methodology for organising that kind of thing in a future video. ERP vendors have profited from the knowledge of BPM best practice that they've taken decades to build, quite often on the back of initial customers when they didn't really know what was best practice in discovering it. But as they've been, companies like SAP have been doing it for decades. We're talking 40 years-ish. They've learned a lot during that time, and they've distilled that into their software. So that's the end of that briefing. We're going to talk about other aspects of re-engineering yet, but that's it for this one.